Rain hammered the roof like 1,000 fists. She pressed her son's head to her chest, both trembling, their backs to a splintered door. The world outside was only gray, water, cold, and footsteps moving further away. No names, no reason, just raw, trembling panic. The boy's breath hitched in short, panic bursts. A single suitcase lay toppled, clothes spilling onto soaked floorboards. Lightning flashed through a broken window. Thunder rattled the walls as the night pressed in. In her mind, one thought pounded. This can't be happening. Not now. Not like this. The roof leaked in steady, icy drops. She wiped her son's cheek, her hand shaking, and forced a whisper. "We'll be all right," she lied. Shadows flickered across their faces, painting hollow eyes and clenched jaws. She listened for mercy, a voice, a door unlocking, a reason to hope. None came. Just rain pounding, relentless. Somewhere, a dog barked in the distance, its voice lost in the storm. The boy began to cry, silent tears on a face too young for this kind of fear. She held him tighter, as if her arms could shield him from a world collapsing. The cold pressed in from every crack. The woman counted each breath, steadying herself while the boy's sobs faded into hiccups. Her hand gripped the boy's shoulder, too tight, then loosened as she caught herself. Each heartbeat was loud, frantic, yet time seemed to move slow. Rain hammered the tin roof above, punctuated by the far-off growl of thunder. She scanned the empty room. Walls stained with old leaks, a single bare bulb swinging from the ceiling, flickering weakly, casting their shadows on the warped floor. "I'm here, I promise," she whispered, voice strained but determined. The boy nodded, squeezing his stuffed animal as if it could absorb all the fear. The sound of water dripping into a rusty bucket became their clock, marking each endless second. Outside, headlights swept past the window, then vanished, leaving only darkness and the echo of her empty vow. Still, she would not cry. Not while he was watching. She had to be strong, even as the world forgot them. Lightning cracked, lighting up the boy's wide eyes as he turned to the window. For a heartbeat, he imagined he saw someone out there. A figure in the rain, unmoving. The woman followed his gaze, dread twisting in her stomach. The figure was gone. If it ever was there, at all. The rain grew heavier, washing the window in silver streaks. She remembered the landlord's words, cold, final, echoing in her mind. "You have until sundown." That had been hours ago. Now, the world was only water and waiting. The boy whispered, "Are they coming back?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "No, not tonight." He pulled his knees to his chest, small and silent. She looked at the door, wishing for miracles, wishing for anyone who would care. But all she heard was the endless storm. As thunder rolled, she closed her eyes and tried to remember a time when hope was easy. Each minute stretched into the next, the silence inside, broken only by the relentless rain. The woman pressed her lips to the boy's forehead, feeling the feverish chill of his skin. She murmured, "We're together. That's enough." But she wasn't sure. The boy's small hand crept into hers, his grip trembling. She remembered the night he was born. Another storm. Another kind of fear. Now, years later, she was still fighting to keep him safe, only the threats had changed shape. A memory flickered, a promise made at a bedside, a soldier's voice swearing they would never be alone. That promise felt as thin as the blanket around their shoulders now. A car splashed past outside. The woman straightened, squaring her shoulders, determined that despair would not take her son tonight. Not if she could help it. The rain slowed, but did not stop. The sound changed, gentler, almost soothing, yet the fear in the room did not lift. The boy drifted toward sleep, eyelids heavy, but kept jolting awake at every thunderclap. The woman counted the seconds between the flashes, finding small comfort in the rhythm. Her thoughts wandered to a soldier's letter tucked deep in the suitcase, a letter she read in secret, over and over. It was hope, it was agony. The boy's breathing steadied, his head resting on her lap. She stroked his hair, humming a lullaby learned long ago, her voice barely louder than the rain. She promised herself, if not him, that dawn would bring a way forward. In the dark she watched the storm, refusing to let go of hope, even if it hurt. Before the world had turned on its head, the dog's days were marked by simple joys. A game of fetch with a battered ball, a gentle scratch behind the ear, a soldier's voice calling him, "Brave boy." The dog, a sturdy mixed breed, 3 years old, male, remembered the taste of sunlight on fur, the way laughter sounded in the small, cluttered courtyard. His loyalty was woven into his bones. Even now, as rain pounded the alley and hunger gnawed at his belly, he moved with quiet dignity. No one saw how he scanned every passing face for a familiar shadow. No one heard his low, hopeful whine at the sound of boots on wet pavement. His world had been full, until one day it wasn't. But the dog still carried the memory of warmth, of duty, and a promise only he understood. Tonight, beneath the shelter of a rusted awning, he watched the darkness, alert, waiting for a voice he feared he'd never hear again. The rain softened, leaving a damp hush. The dog stepped from beneath the awning, nose twitching as he sniffed at old scents. This alley, once filled with laughter and food, now held only echoes and litter. He padded toward a crumpled paper bag, sniffing for scraps. The world felt smaller each night, more unforgiving. Still, he moved with cautious hope, tail low, but not tucked. Across the street, he saw a window faintly lit, behind it, a silhouette he once knew. He paused, ears perked, heart thumping. The world had changed, but his purpose had not. Protect, wait, hope. The sound of distant thunder made him flinch, but he did not run. He settled on the cold concrete, gaze fixed on the house where memories lingered. Even as the night swallowed his shape, his spirit refused to fade. In the time before storms and silence, the soldier would kneel, hands gentle, eyes warm. Stay, he'd command, and the dog would obey, heart swelling with pride. Those were days of purpose, routine, praise, belonging. Sometimes, a small boy joined them, squealing with delight as the dog leapt for a stick, the soldier's laughter ringing out. The dog's world was structured and safe. Now, the soldier was gone, his voice a fading echo. Hunger pressed in, but it was absence that hurt most. The dog circled the courtyard, stopping at the old gate, pressing his nose to wood, as if it might open for him again. Even in the rain, he returned to the places that still smelled like home, unwilling to surrender hope. Now the yard was empty, but for the sound of dripping water and the dog's lonely footsteps. He sniffed the base of the gate, tail wagging faintly as if the memory of kindness might materialize. But the world had moved on. Neighbors glanced, muttering about the stray, pulling children close. A woman in a red shawl shooed him away, her face pinched with worry or contempt. The dog hesitated, then retreated, heart aching, but posture unbroken. In the wet grass he found a patch that still smelled of his people. He lay there, curling tightly against the cold, watching the house through the mist. The lights inside flickered, shadows passing by. The dog closed his eyes, letting the memory of laughter warm him as he drifted into uneasy sleep. The world sharpened with the first light. The dog awoke, shivering, dew collecting on his fur. He stood, shook himself, and gazed again at the closed gate. The house was quiet now, no signs of life, no laughter spilling out. Still, the dog did not leave. His loyalty anchored him. Hunger pinched, but he circled the yard, nose to the ground, searching for any remnant of those he loved. A familiar scarf, a forgotten toy, anything to remind him why he waited. In the silence he raised his head and barked once, sharp and hopeful. The sound cut through the dawn, a question and a promise. Somewhere inside, a curtain moved. The dog's ears perked. Hope, battered but alive, sparked again in his chest. He would not abandon this place. Not until the promise was kept. The world did not offer mercy. Morning found the widow and her son standing on the steps, their few belongings stacked in a soggy pile. The landlord, face grim, arms folded, watched as they gathered what they could. "You're out of time," he said, voice flat, his gaze sliding away from their pleading eyes. The boy clung to his mother, silent but shaking. The widow lifted the suitcase, shoulders squared, refusing to beg. Neighbors peered from behind curtains, whispering, their faces shadowed with pity, or relief that it wasn't them. The street felt hostile, every window an accusation. Rain dripped from the eaves, pooling at their feet. No one offered help. Not a single hand reached out. The boy whispered, "Where will we go?" She knelt, meeting his eyes, forcing a smile. "Somewhere safe, I promise." But even she heard the doubt in her voice. The door closed behind them with a final echoing thud, sealing off what little past they had left. They walked, silent, down a street that felt foreign despite years spent there. The boy stumbled, shoes soaked and too small. The widow glanced back just once, seeing the landlord shut the door and draw the curtains tight. Every step away was a goodbye, though no one spoke the word. Passing cars splashed through puddles, indifferent. A stray cat darted from under a car, vanishing into shadows. The widow guided her son beneath an awning, seeking momentary shelter from the drizzle. He pressed against her, cold and afraid. She scanned the empty faces passing by, searching for a flicker of kindness, but found only closed expressions. "We'll rest for a bit," she said, voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, too tired to argue, face hidden in her coat. They were alone, truly alone, in a world that seemed to have decided their fate. Hunger gnawed as the hours dragged on. The boy's stomach growled, but he said nothing. The widow rummaged through her bag, producing a piece of stale bread. She broke it in half, handing a piece to her son. He chewed slowly, eyes on the ground. From across the street, voices drifted, a group of youths laughing, their happiness out of reach. The widow tried to shield her son from the sound, wishing she could shield him from all of it. "Eat. It will help," she said softly, though she knew it was a lie. Every bite tasted like loss. The bread disappeared too quickly. The boy shivered, tucking his knees to his chest. The widow wrapped an arm around him, rocking gently as if he were still a baby. The world moved past them, uncaring, while they clung to what little comfort remained. As dusk approached, the streetlights flickered on. The widow counted coins in her palm, barely enough for bread, not for shelter. She looked at her son, eyes rimmed red from crying, and swallowed her pride. "Stay here," she said, squeezing his hand. He nodded, tucking closer to the wall. She approached a nearby bakery, heart pounding. The baker glanced at her, then at the coins. "Only enough for a roll," he said brusquely, pushing stale bread across the counter. She thanked him, holding back tears. On her way out, she saw her son shivering against the growing night, a stray dog watching him from across the street. The widow hurried back, wrapping her arms around him and offering the bread. The dog didn't move, just waited, silent and patient, eyes fixed on the pair. Night settled heavy, swallowing hope with the last light. The widow and her son sat close, sharing the bread in silence. The dog crept nearer, hunger and longing in his cautious steps. The boy noticed first, eyes meeting the dog's across the empty street. He broke a crumb from his bread, hesitated, then offered it with an outstretched hand. The dog waited, uncertain, before inching forward, drawn by kindness he had nearly forgotten. The widow watched, wary but unmoving. The dog took the crumb, tongue brushing the boy's small palm. For a moment there was no storm, no landlord, no world outside. Only three souls bound by hunger, fear, and the hope of something better. The boy smiled just barely. The dog settled beside them, tail thumping softly, and for the first time, all day, warmth returned. The street outside was slick with rain, gray and unforgiving. The eviction notice had been served, but it wasn't just paper. It was the cold finality in the landlord's eyes. Mr. Caldwell, a man whose face was etched with years of hard choices, stood rigid. "I'm sorry, but the law is clear. No exceptions. The widow's son clenched his fists, his voice trembling. You don't understand. My father was a soldier. He promised. Mr. Caldwell's gaze hardened. Promises don't pay rent. Nearby, an onlooker, a young woman clutching her umbrella, watched silently, torn between stepping in and walking away. The dog, sensing tension, growled low, eyes fixed on the crowd gathering like vultures. Inside the dimly lit kitchen, the widow's hands shook as she folded a tattered uniform shirt, worn with age and sweat. He never wanted this, she whispered, voice breaking. The son paced, anger simmering. There has to be something. Someone who remembers what Dad did. A sudden knock at the door startled them. Standing there was Officer Mason, a figure known for empathy but bound by rules. I'm here because, well, I can't ignore what's happening. His eyes met the dog's, full of unspoken understanding. Let me see what I can do, he promised, but the weight of bureaucracy loomed. The widow's hope flickered like a candle in the storm. The landlord's office smelled of stale tobacco and old papers. Mr. Caldwell sat behind a heavy desk, a man worn by compromises. His phone buzzed. It's the Veterans Association, he muttered, eyes narrowing. There's a record of the soldier's service, and a promise made to his family, long forgot. The words unsettled him, a crack in his stern facade. Outside, the widow and son waited, unaware of the shift. Mr. Caldwell stood, hesitating. Maybe I was too harsh. The line between duty and compassion blurred as he reached for his coat. Sometimes the law bends for the weight of a promise. In the rain, the crowd had thinned except for the widow, her son, and the dog, soaked but undeterred. The hesitant woman from before approached, voice soft but firm. I'm Sarah. I work with the Veterans Group. We never forgot your husband's sacrifice. She handed the widow a folded letter, official and embossed. There's a promise housing support guaranteed to families like yours. We'll fight to get it reinstated. Relief washed over the widow's face, tears mixing with raindrops. The son knelt, hugging the dog. You did it, boy. You found a way. The dog wagged its tail weakly, a guardian still on watch. The landlord returned, hands empty but eyes softer. I've contacted the veterans office. We'll pause the eviction. The widow exhaled deeply, the weight lifting but scars still fresh. Officer Mason offered a nod of approval. This isn't the end. It's a new beginning. The dog, sensing the shift, barked once, strong and clear, before resting its head on the widow's lap. The son smiled, the first in days. Dad's promise wasn't forgotten, neither will we. Outside the rain slowed, a hesitant sun breaking through. Sometimes humanity emerges where least expected, fueled by loyalty, love, and the courage to act. The widow sat at the kitchen table, the folded letter still clutched in her trembling hands. Sarah, the veteran's advocate, leaned closer. There's more. This letter only scratches the surface. Your husband made a secret promise, not just to his family, but to someone who mattered. The son looked puzzled. What do you mean? Sarah pulled out a faded photograph, edges curled and yellowed. It showed the soldier in uniform, standing beside a man in plain clothes, his commanding officer. This man promised your husband's dog would always be cared for, a living reminder of his service and sacrifice. The dog, lying nearby, lifted its head, eyes shining with recognition. Sarah continued. Your husband's commanding officer had a deal with the housing board, an unofficial promise that his dog's family would be sheltered in times of need. The widow's breath hitched. But why wasn't it honored? The son clenched his jaw. Some promises get lost, buried in red tape and forgotten faces. Sarah nodded grimly. That's why I'm here, to unearth that past, to remind them that promises made in the fog of war aren't just words, they're bonds. Outside, the dog whimpered softly, as if sensing the weight of history unfolding around him, the key to unlocking hope and justice. That evening, the son rummaged through his father's belongings, boxes of medals, letters and journals hidden beneath floorboards. A brittle envelope caught his eye, sealed with wax. Inside, a letter from the commanding officer detailed a vow to ensure the well-being of my comrade's family and his loyal companion, come what may. The son's hands trembled as he read aloud, "If hardship ever comes, this dog is a key to a debt owed, a debt of honor." The dog, sensing the moment, nuzzled closer, as if understanding his role in a legacy far bigger than shelter or survival, an emblem of loyalty that transcends time. The next day, Sarah returned with a file thick with official papers, contracts, letters, and promises long forgotten or ignored. She laid them on the table, each document telling a story of silent sacrifice and broken trust. "The key is this clause," she said, pointing to fine print that guaranteed housing aid tied to the soldier's dog. It was never enacted due to bureaucratic oversight, until now. The widow's eyes filled with tears. "So it's not just about us. It's about honoring a promise kept by a dog's loyalty." The son looked down at the dog, whose steady gaze seemed to say, "I carry their hope." The fragile thread of past and present was about to weave their fate anew. With the newfound proof in hand, the son and Sarah marched to the city council meeting, their steps purposeful beneath the clearing skies. Voices rose as the story unfolded, of promises, loyalty, and injustice. Some council members shifted uncomfortably, others nodded in acknowledgement. Then, a decisive voice broke through. "This family has endured enough. The promise will be honored." The widow's breath caught as relief washed over her. The dog barked once, clear and proud, a guardian's call that echoed the past and opened a door to a future where promises, no matter how delayed, still hold power. The city council chamber buzzed with anticipation, tension thick in the air like a storm about to break. The widow gripped her son's hand tightly as Sarah stepped to the podium, her voice steady but passionate. "This is more than a document. It's a testament to loyalty, sacrifice, and the promises we owe our veterans." Opposing voices challenged, citing budget limits and precedent. The dog sat quietly at the widow's feet, ears perked, sensing the gravity of the moment. Outside, rain began to fall again, tapping on the tall windows like a countdown. Every eye was fixed on the council's decision, the future hanging in the balance. One councilman rose, voice cold but not without conflict. "While the promise is honorable, we must consider fairness to all citizens." Sarah's rebuttal was sharp. "Fairness isn't denying aid to those who saved our freedom. This isn't special treatment, it's justice for a broken promise." The widow's son stood, voice cracking but fierce. "My father fought so others wouldn't be left out in the rain. Now we're fighting to keep a roof over our heads." The dog suddenly barked sharply, drawing a hush. The room seemed to hold its breath, the dog's bark echoing like a call to conscience, shaking even the hardest hearts. Minutes felt like hours. The chairperson's gavel finally struck the desk. "After careful consideration, this council will honor the promise. Housing support for the widow and her son will be reinstated effective immediately." The widow's eyes welled with tears. Her son exhaled in relief. The dog wagged its tail, lifting its head proudly as if it understood the victory was theirs. Outside the chamber, cameras flashed and murmurs swelled, news of justice earned, not given. But beyond the applause and official statements lay the unspoken truth. This moment was the culmination of faith, fight, and unwavering loyalty. Later that evening, back home, the atmosphere was both calm and electric. The widow brewed tea, hands still shaking but smiling. "Your father would be proud," she said softly to her son. The dog lay beside the fireplace, eyes heavy but content. Sarah packed her bag, her work for the day done but her heart full. "It's not just about housing," she said. "It's about restoring faith. In promises, in people." The son knelt beside the dog, whispering thanks. Outside, the first clear stars pierced the night sky, a silent promise that sometimes hope shines brightest after the darkest storms. As the household settled, the dog suddenly perked up, ears twitching. It padded quietly to the door, nudging it open just enough for a cool breeze to slip in. The son followed, watching as the dog stepped into the moonlight. In that moment, the dog's silhouette was more than a pet. It was a guardian of promises kept and battles fought, a living link between past sacrifice and future hope. The son whispered, "We're not alone anymore." The dog's soft bark was the answer, a vow renewed. Outside, the night was still. But inside, hearts beat fiercely with the knowledge that some promises, no matter how long buried, always find their way home. Days had passed since the council's decision, but the echoes of change still hummed in the small home. The widow moved quietly through the now warm rooms, arranging small comforts her husband once loved. "It's not just a roof," she said softly. "It's a reminder that we're not invisible." The son watched the dog chase sunlight across the floor, a symbol of resilience and loyalty. Outside, neighbors began to speak in softer tones, some offering help, others simply nodding with respect. The battle was over, but the healing, of trust of hearts, had only just begun. Promises kept had carved new paths, fragile but real. The widow sat with Sarah, their conversation weaving through past struggles and future hopes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing when so many turned away." Sarah shook her head gently. "You and your family believed first. I just helped bring your truth to light." The son joined them, holding a freshly printed certificate of housing support, a tangible symbol of victory and honor. The dog rested at their feet, a silent guardian. Together, they embodied a community reborn from hardship, their bond stronger than the forces that tried to break them. The promise had been honored, but its true power was in the unity it inspired. Outside, life moved forward, with cautious optimism. The son returned to school, carrying books with a newfound determination. "Dad's fight isn't over, but now we have a chance to build something new," he told his mother. The widow smiled, watching the dog greet familiar faces on their street, tails wagging, a bridge between past sacrifice and future community. Small acts of kindness, helping with groceries, checking in on the widow, began to stitch the fabric of a neighborhood that once looked away. In the quiet moments, hope was no longer fragile. It was a growing flame, fueled by the legacy of loyalty and love. One evening, the son found an old worn collar in a box, the soldier's dog's first gift to his loyal companion. He fastened it gently around the dog's neck. "You carried Dad's promise," he said softly. The dog's eyes met his, a deep understanding passing between them. Outside, the stars blazed bright, as if honoring an unspoken vow. The widow joined them, hands clasped together. "We're part of something bigger now," she said, voice steady. The past had shaped them, but the future was theirs to claim. In the quiet glow of the night, the family sat together, wrapped in the warmth of promise fulfilled, and a bond that would never break. As the house settled into peaceful night, the dog rested its head on the widow's lap, eyes heavy but calm. The son whispered, "We made it." Outside, the rain had stopped for good. Somewhere in the distance a train whistle blew, a reminder of journeys taken, and those still ahead. The widow smiled faintly, her gaze distant yet hopeful. "Not all promises are kept on time," she murmured, "but when they are, they heal more than just wounds. They restore faith." The dog's soft breathing was the heartbeat of their story, a living testament that even in the darkest storms, loyalty and love can light the way home.